Everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Miles and Mentors. We have another great mentor with us today, a driver that's going to tell us all about his story and his advice. So stick with us. We have a great episode lined up for you right after this on Miles and Mentors.
Welcome to Miles and Mentors, the podcast that humanizes trucking, getting real life advice and insights from logistics professionals from all over the industry. We sit down with those seasoned mentors who have put in the miles, with a mission to pass on the knowledge gained from years in the industry to you. Now buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hey, Gary, thank you so much for being with us. How you doing today?
It is absolutely gorgeous outside today. That's why I'm doing this outside, and I'm doing fine.
Fantastic. Where are you located at? Remind me that.
Springfield, Missouri, the heart of the Ozarks.
Right. That's right. Good town. Got the major Bass Pro Shop there. You guys a fan?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been living here for more than 20 years, and I've been to that place like twice. But
usually how it
driving
goes.
a truck, I hauled a lot of loads for Bass Pro.
Oh, fair enough.
Lots and lots, because this is the Bass Pro headquarters in Springfield, Missouri.
Right.
Not just the big shop. This is also where their main distribution center is.
Everything comes out of there. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, man, you've had an excellent career in the industry, and I'm curious. Let's just start off. What actually brought you to trucking in the first place?
Well, there was a couple of things. One, growing up, my dad was a trucker. He was partially a trucker, partially a salesman.
Okay.
So he delivered tractors and sold tractors, and he drove a little bit. He drove some on the side to help pay some extra bills. But he always enjoyed the trucking part of it, and I rode with him on several occasions, and I really enjoyed it too. That was part of it. I had an uncle and some more relatives that were truck drivers, and that was another part of it. But what got me in the industry officially was my health going sideways. I got to where I was having trouble doing those factory jobs and all that stuff. So, I had to do something different. And I said, well, I could still drive something. I could drive. So maybe I could drive a truck. And so it took me a little doing, but that's what got me started. And my initial jump was to start putting in some applications and seeing where I could find a place that would hire me, that would put me to school and get me my license. I didn't have a CDL. And after a few pokes, I found CRST, Cedar Rapids Steel Transport. And they took me in there and got me through school. So that's how I got started there.
Man, so what kind of transition is that? I mean, we're talking, you said working in warehouse type jobs and then going into trucking. Obviously, you have some exposure to it from family, but jumping in that stage and going through getting your CDL, how big of a transition career-wise was that for you mentally?
Well, I have a lot of people ask me about trucking.
Yeah.
Say what they're always in the thinking about it stage. They see somebody with the money and they say, I mean, I could do that. And so they're thinking about it. And then they go ask truck drivers, hey, what's it like, And I have this response, and this is the response I give everybody. It's a bit like being a prostitute or a drug dealer. Okay. It's a life-changing moment. You make a lot of money. You move into a pretty good paying career, but you sell your soul in the process to do it. You basically trade all of the things that you have for the one thing that you want, which is money.
Yeah. And
the money doesn't improve the things that you thought it would. It just raises your standards of living. And so once you start driving, well, you you really can't do anything else, because how can you go from making $2,000 a week to making $300 a week? You're stuck doing it for the rest of your life. That's essentially how that goes. I'm just being straight up and honest with you.
No, that's what we need. That's what we need. So kind of going through that process, what is something that you learned right off the bat that you weren't expecting when you got into the industry for yourself?
I guess the first thing that I wasn't expecting was just how much regulation, paperwork, computer work, and forms, and how much of that crap there is involved in driving a truck. And not only getting your license and keeping your license, but in actually performing your day-to-day job. There's a lot of paperwork and a lot of secretary work involved in driving a truck, a lot more than I expected.
Yeah, that's one thing that always stands out to me. And comparing it to pretty much any other job out there, it's amazing because all that stuff kind of lands on your shoulders while you're driving the truck. You don't have this standalone office where you can go over here and just send an email. It's like you're doing the job, but you've got all this other stuff that's got to happen too. That's a lot to take on.
You are basically you are your only resource.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's if you got a load that's supposed to be somewhere in an hour, and it's an hour away, or say it's an hour and a half away, and you get a flat tire, well, you're the one that's going to need to call that receiver, let them know, hey, I got this problem, I might be late. Work that out at the same time. You got to call for a tow truck, or someone to come out and fix that flat. You got to stay on top of them. You got to call dispatch, let them know that you might be late, and so they can start working out this problem, maybe rescheduling things. You got to juggle all this crap, making sure you're covering everything with your logs and all these other things. And so, yeah, it's you. You are the only real resource you have.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Now, with that in mind, all that responsibility, all those different matters to kind of think about at all times and be able to navigate in a moment's notice, how much do you think the value factor is of you having a level of mentorship, kind of growing up around trucking, having that exposure to it versus somebody maybe with no exposure, just jumping into the industry, having that insight? How valuable do you think that is, or is it something you can figure out along the way successfully?
Well, to be honest, the insight that I thought I had really didn't mean anything. It was basically, it didn't really help at all. And for several reasons. One, from what you see from the passenger seat is completely different than what you see from the driver's seat.
That's a fair point.
And two, going from, there's two different generations, almost three generations, and so things, by the time I started driving, things were so radically different than they were when I was a young man.
Yeah.
That there was almost nothing that was the same. It was almost completely different. The only thing that remained is the fact that you are going down the highway for hours at a time. Everything else was completely different. The trucks drove different. The way you did brakes is different. Your logs is different. The pay was different. The loads were different. Everything was different. But that's not really. It just didn't really help, man. Sorry.
Sure. So obviously we're talking.
I thought it would. I really did, but it didn't. I thought I had the leg up on everybody, but no.
You do bring up a fair point there. I mean, you can have all the training in the world and kind of be as book smart as you can be, but like you said, the experience and the view from that passenger seat completely different from that driver's seat, and having that hands-on experience speaks for itself, most definitely.
Yeah, I could explain to you how to tie a shoe. I could have you explain it back to me. I could have you draw me a picture. We can go over it 100 times. You have it down pat in your head, but until you put your fingers on the laces and actually do the job, you're not really there. That's when it really comes around. So yeah, it's even when you got a trainer in the truck with you, and you're going to do your running loads with your trainer in the truck, you've always got a safety net.
Right.
You've always got man, I'm lost, I'm confused, and there's always a safety net. But the first day you go out by yourself with your first list of loads, and you just have to figure it out. That's when the real stuff begins that day, man.
Yeah. I can't argue with that. So what would you say from your experience, what's the biggest challenge that a new over-the-road driver should expect, and how can they prepare for them?
The biggest challenge is it's not going to be picking up at your first receiver. It's kind of funny. It's not going to be delivering at because you're going to know what to do. When you go to pick up your first load, there's going to be somebody throughout that stage that's going to tell you what to do. You're going to stop at the gate, and that guy's going to tell you where to go. You're going to stop at the office, and the lady behind the window is going to tell you where to get, what dock to get on. And then you get done, you're going to look at the thing, and you're going to say, I have to take it to this address, right? You go to that address, same thing. There's going to be a guy at the gates going to tell you where to go, and a guy in the office telling you what dock to get on. You're going to be following directions. The biggest challenge is actually the first night when you have to stop and try to find somewhere to park. The first time that you're in between to an A and B, and you have to do a break because your time is running out on your clock, or you're running low on fuel, and you're looking at your fuel stop, and you're like, man, I don't know if I can make this fuel stop, and it's 2:00 in the morning, and everybody at your company's gone home, and you're trying to figure out how to handle that situation. And the way you handle it is you stop someplace and get fuel. Mm-hmm. That's a whole lot easier to explain than why you had to call a tow truck because you ran out of diesel on the side of the highway. Always stop somewhere and put fuel in that truck. I don't care where you have to stop. It'll be a lot easier to deal with. But yeah, those are the challenges, really. Now, on a more metaphorical, which is probably where you wanted me to go, the biggest challenge is the first few nights and beyond that you're not with your family. You're out by yourself. You may be having trouble because you're having to sleep by yourself. Some people just have trouble with that if they're married. Yeah. It may be sleeping in a new environment. It may be sleeping in some place that makes you nervous. It may be being away from home, missing your family. Those are all big, huge challenges. But those come over time. They're not the first things that you run into. Those things build up. Sure. The first challenges are, like I said, finding that first parking spot. Or dealing with that unknown thing that comes up, like a big, huge storm comes in. You can't drive for like 4 or 5 hours, and now what do you do? Yeah. How do I do this on my clock? What do I do? How do I fix this? And I have this problem. The stress of all that kind of stuff, those unknowns that you have to actually sort out yourself. No one's there to tell you what to do. Those are the biggest challenges you face real quickly.
That's a fantastic point. I mean, in training, they can teach you so much, but there's always going to be those instances on the road. Like you said, hitting that storm, different stuff like that. Traffic jam, big wrecks, snowstorms. Where only experience can really give you that know-how that you need. Now,
the way I handle that is I have a priority system.
Yeah.
So my priority system is like this: safe, legal, job. Mm-hmm. I do what's safe first. That's the priority. Safe first. I don't care if it's legal or not. I do what's safe first, and then what's legal. And then if I've done both of those two, then we do the job. The job never comes before the other two. And safe always comes before legal, because just because it's legal doesn't mean it's safe.
Fair enough.
Safe, legal, job. That's my list. As long as you put those in order, you'll keep out of trouble.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's solid advice there. Now, you're kind of talking about, finding that parking spot and the fuel and stuff like that. And it's bringing to my mind time management. And again, how we were talking, so much being on a driver's shoulders, getting into this industry, how important is time management?
Well, you know how you schedule your life as a non-truck driver?
Yeah.
You have, at 9 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, you wake up, 9 o'clock, you go to work. Noon, you take a lunch. 5 o'clock, you leave work. By 7 o'clock, you're at home. By 9 o'clock, you're in bed. rinse and repeat. All that goes out the window. Gone.
Right.
That's the first thing you have to forget. Something that you spent your entire life since you was a little kid getting used to. You have to completely forget that, because that no longer applies in your world. You have to sleep when you can, drive when it's legal to drive, and be at your appointments. And those are the things that you have to do. So you may show up at a receiver at 2:00 in the morning. Your appointment's at 7 or 6, which means you get to go to bed for 4 hours, wake up, go to your appointment. Then your next load picks up at, say, noon, okay, 20 miles away. So you go back, and you got to find somewhere to park because you can't park there. Mm-hmm. So you got to drive somewhere else, find a place to park, sleep for a couple more hours, and then be at your next appointment 20 miles away at noon. Hopefully you got your break in, because that 2 to noon is only 10 hours. So you had to move off the clock there at some point in time, because there's only, you have to take a 10-hour break. So you got this little chunk of sleep, and you go pick up your load. And now that load's got to be somewhere, and it's a 10-hour drive. You got one full drive shift, and you're barely able to make it. So you got to drive that whole drive, regardless of how you feel about the situation. And then rinse and repeat over and over again. When you get there, it might be noon, right? Or it might be whatever. It's like that your time, the day doesn't matter to you. The sun coming up and going down is totally irrelevant. So you're working on a 14-hour day, or a 21-hour day, if you max everything out. And so you can get in multiple days. Like, you can get in more than 7 days in a 7-day week. You can get in like 8 or 9 days in a 7-day week, because none of that matters. And so you're constantly flipping and rotating around, sleeping sometimes during the day, sleeping at night, sleeping during the middle, it's chaos. And so you have to, time management, yes, but it really comes down to, whenever you're sitting still, sleep. When you're awake, be driving.
Yeah. I mean,
if you're not doing those, you're not doing it right,
For sure. Now, I mean, that brings to question for me, because obviously I pull a hectic schedule, I pull some late nights, but that is a totally different ball game. And especially driving. I'm one of those guys that long drive make me sleepy to begin with. So that adds a whole other level to it. So I just got a question, silly or not, do you ever truly get used to that type of schedule?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, you do. If you're gonna, you'll know in the first few months.
Yeah.
You'll know pretty quick. But you do. You get so used to it that when you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. You just can't go back to sleep. I don't care if I've been asleep for 3 hours, 4 hours. When I wake up, I'm done sleeping until, 10, 11, 12 hours has passed, minimal. I just can't go back to sleep. My body just says, nope, that's over with. Now it's time to do something. We got to drive, You do get used to it. Yes. But it always sucks. Now, what makes it hard, though, is if you're regularly going home on the weekends, that wrecks your whole schedule, because they're all operating on a different wavelength than you are, and you start jabbing in with them, falling into that rut, and you leave out Sunday, head out Sunday night, and normally you would have slept till like Sunday around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but you've been awake since Sunday morning, and you're still thinking you need to leave Sunday night. That first night out is going to be a train wreck. It's going to be rough. So
I can see that.
You get used to it, but only if your family stays on your schedule.
Now, throughout your time in the industry, what would you say is some of the most impactful advice that you've received from another driver?
It's going to sound dumb.
That's all right. That's all right.
It's going to sound dumb, but I have the answer right away. I know exactly what it is. I'll tell you the little short story behind it so it has context.
Yeah.
I was in, I believe you're up in Kansas City.
Yep.
I was up there at the tension envelope place. They make envelopes there. Go figure. It's really hard to get into. It's a funky driveway. You got to go into by this little general store. You got to turn in. It's real weird. But the point is, my trainer. I was with my trainer. This is on the last leg of our training. Had to drop a load there, and I'm cruising along there looking for this driveway, doing maybe 15, 20 mile an hour. And my trainer reaches over and punched me in the arm. And I'm going to use corrected grammar. He said, if you don't know where you're going and you don't know where you are, slow the fuck down. And it hit me every time he said that. And that, believe it or not, stuck with me forever. That piece of advice made a huge difference. If you don't know where you're going, stop. Just stop. Turn your hazard lights on and stop. Because it's so much easier to let that traffic go around you, figure out where you're going, and then go there than it is to go past your turn and try to figure out how to get back. There's cases where you can go past your turn and there is no way to get back. Like there'll be a bridge up ahead that you can't go under, and now you've got to back up however many miles, or call a tow truck to come tow you around. It's crazy. That statement saved me so much, because as soon as I start looking for something and I'm moving, I think about that and I just hit the brakes and turn on my lights. And I said, okay, let me figure this out. I'll stop right smack in the middle of the road.
Oh, sure. Well,
that was the most profound thing. Yes. I told you it was dumb.
Well, yeah, but it makes sense, especially with your perspective there, because so many guys in their cars driving around see a trucker and get frustrated. But man, when you think of it from that perspective, that's a big vehicle, and you get it in the wrong spot, it is hard to get it out.
you're technically in something that doesn't have reverse.
Sure.
Think of it that way. If you're in a situation where there's cars behind you that are trying to go the same direction you are, you don't have reverse. Reverse is not even an option. You can't possibly back up.
Yeah.
So if there's nowhere for you to go forward, the only thing you can do is sit there. It sucks, but it's easier to deal with a big truck that's just stopped in the middle of the road than it is the one that's weaving around trying to do something crazy in the road.
Sure. Well, then I guess you're forced to kind of factor in the whole time is money thing there too, because the more you get yourself in a hairy situation, it's going to cost you in the long run. Pay attention to where you're going.
If you ain't been there before, look at the route, figure it out. These are rules that I use. Drive at night. Try to arrive at your destination at like between 10, 11 o'clock and about 2 o'clock in the morning, because especially if you don't know where you're going, because the odds are the roads will be dead, the town will be empty. You'll have the ability to make those U-turns and do those weird turns in the parking lot that you need to do to hit the thing that you missed.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry so much about being stressed out from cars trying to pass you and all that while you're trying to figure out how to turn into a place. It's just all around better. That's one rule I tried to follow as much as possible. I tried to arrive at my destination late at night. And then I would also try to park at my destination, because the other thing is you want to make yourself easy to dispatch. And the dispatcher that's looking at you and going, well, he's on break. His break will be up here in a couple of hours. He'll have a full drive shift. I know exactly what I can do. I've got tons of options. But if you're in the same boat where you stopped 30 miles out and had to drive in to deliver that morning at 6 o'clock, your clock started when you took off. So now your dispatcher comes in and goes, well, this clock's already running. I got to find him something. There's nothing close by. Oh crap! This place over here this ain't going to work. This ain't going to work. He said, I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow to dispatch you.
Yeah.
All because you drove 20 miles, and you'll be sitting there going, wow, I only used up 20 minutes. Make yourself easy to dispatch, man. The easier you are to dispatch, the more consistent the miles are.
That's fantastic advice. Fantastic. So for somebody starting out in the industry, brand new driver, what would you say is some realistic expectations for their first year on the road?
As pertains to money or
Kind of just high level. What can they expect that first year realistically in being successful?
okay. Uh, well, the first thing that you're going to run into is a company is going to offer you, the company that's going to hire you or that's going to train you is going to suck. All
Mm,
right. It's just going to suck. The company's going to suck, but you'll have some obligation to them to work for them. And I suggest that you do, even if it sucks, because you're going to learn quite a bit working for that sucky company. The first thing is they're going to offer you a chance to either be a company driver or a lease operator. In the very beginning, they're probably going to push you toward leasing because ultimately it's more economically beneficial for the company if you lease.
okay.
If you suck as a lease operator, you lose money. If you suck as a company driver, they lose money. So they're going to push you toward leasing. They're going to be like, well, if you lease, you get to run this fast. If you're a company driver, you have to run a little slower. If you're a company driver, you have to take every load thrown at you. If you're a lease driver, you can turn loads down. They're going to give you crap like that. Lease drivers get the new trucks. Company drivers get the old trucks. Blah, 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 blah. If they're doing that, you absolutely want to be a company driver. If they're trying to push you toward lease, you absolutely do not want to do that. For the first 6 months that you're driving, you do not want to drive as a lease driver. You want to be a company driver, at least for that first 6 months,
Okay.
because you can really mess yourself up quickly as a lease driver.
Now, is that just on the
and
level of the experience, or why do you say that?
so many reasons. It's just
Sure.
like there's just so many problems with it. You're responsible for so much more stuff, and
Mhm.
you don't know what you're in for, and you don't know how to prepare for what's coming up. Can you be successful as a brand spanking new driver in a lease truck? Yes. Your chances are slim, but you
Mhm.
can. If everything is perfect, then you'll probably make some money. Odds are you're not going to make as much as you think.
Right.
The other part of it is leasing requires a certain attitude. If your priority is to make sure that you're home every weekend, you do not want to be a lease driver or an owner operator. That's the wrong mentality for that position. If your priority is being home every weekend, company driver. Don't let nobody talk you into doing nothing else. You're going to hate yourself if you do.
Mhm.
If your priority is to make as much money as you possibly can, home time be damned. Just roll and make bank. In that case, company drive for 6 months and then find a good company, get on there and lease from them and let the good times roll. You'll make
Yeah.
all kinds of money. You're not going to be home ever, but you'll make a lot of money. You can buy yourself a house, buy yourself a car, and, work for 10 years and then quit and then go home. But if you want to be home every weekend, you don't want to be no lease driver, no, because it's going to conflict. Everything's going to conflict for you.
No, that's fantastic insight.
Yeah.
So you touched a little bit on kind of that first year, that first stint with a company is going to be a little rough. Uh, from that point, how do you stay motivated or focused when the job gets tough in those situations?
One foot in front of the other.
There you go.
Right. It's just that simple. You wake up, you're sitting there on the side of your bed. What else you got to do? Get in the truck and drive. When you get done driving, well, my clock's done. I go to bed. Just put one foot in front of the other. That's how the whole game goes. You run the first couple of weeks and then you find out your paycheck's $100 because you did something stupid.
Mm,
Get back behind the driver's seat and drive. What else are you gonna do? There's no motivation. There's a road and you're sitting on it. It's time to go.
yeah.
Well, maybe next week will be better. I mean, it's like going to it's I don't know how to explain it except there's no consistency. You know, the more you try, the harder you work at it, and the more you work to make yourself easy to dispatch, and easy to plan, the more neutral you keep that clock in that regard, the better. But there's no safety net ever. There's been many a week when I was leasing that I went negative at the end of the week, and then went negative at the end of that next week, and then went negative at the end of that next week. And then finally at the end of the next week, I was zero. I didn't owe any money, but I didn't make any money.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you stay positive? You get back in the damn truck and you drive. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
You know, of course, on the same note, leasing is often I made $2,000 a week, make $2,000 the next week, $1,500 next week, $3,500 the next week. Sometimes it's like that. Other times it's negative, zero.
No, I love that you point that out, though, because I mean, it really goes to show the personality and the drive you need to have to be successful. There's definitely money to be made.
You just have to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all balances itself out over time. But that's why I tell everyone, look, if you're a company driver and you drive 1 mile in a week, you're going to make money that week. Maybe 20, 30 cents, 40 cents, but you're going to make money that week. If you're a lease driver and you drive anything less than, 1,600 miles, you're going negative that week.
Mm.
So if you go out and drive 1,000 miles as a lease driver and that's all you're able to get that week, you're going to go in the hole $500 or $600 that week. So the next week, you're starting out at negative. Now, if you're a company driver and you only got 1,000 miles that week, you're probably going to make $400, $500, or $600 for that. Now, on the other hand, if you're a lease driver and you run 3,000 miles a week, you're going to make more than a company driver that also ran 3,000 miles that week. A lot more.
Yeah.
But come next week when you only get 1,800, that shifts around. That's why I said, if you're super hungry, once you've done it for a little while, 6 months to a year, you kind of figured yourself out and you're super hungry and you don't care about going home, lease it and drive like a maniac. You're just fine. But if that's not your mentality, you do not want to lease or be an owner or op. You're just going to kill yourself. You're going to hate it when you get done. You're not going to like any outcome from that.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
A lot of times they'll tell you, like Northeast or New York City, Chicago, New Jersey, they'll be like, you'll be over on the north side, I'll send you a load to go into New York City and deliver something. And they'll say you have to take every load. You can't turn down loads. You can't refuse dispatch. Man, you can do whatever you want on your last day. You say, well, I'm not refusing my dispatch, but I'm not going to New York City because it's going to take me a long time to pick up that load. You might want to get somebody else and put them on it. I ain't going up in there. I done been to New York City. You don't want to drive a truck into New York City. Unless you're from New York City recently, even then you really don't want to.
I was gonna say,
that's a whole different world.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how some of these guys get around Kansas City with these trucks, let alone
KC's a pain in the butt. I drove in KC a lot. Yeah. A lot.
Man, so we've covered some great stuff. I want to kind of get a little bit to the nitty gritty, though, of the industry, because trucking has more laws and regulations and than pretty much anything else. And that is a monster to come into as someone uneducated in the industry. How big of a deal is that to tackle for someone coming in as a new driver, and how important is it to really get it right and stay up with it?
If you're working for yourself, it's a lot more to deal with.
Makes sense.
But if you're
Yeah.
working for a company, which is where most new people are going to be doing, pretty much nobody comes into this business working for themselves unless their dad gives them a trucking company.
Mm.
A lot of the regulations and the crap that they're just not something that you have to worry about for the most part. The pieces and bits that concern you more, usually somebody's going to pass those on to you. You know, your dispatcher, your safety department, these different areas, these people are going to deliver. But having said that, you do want to make yourself aware of the FMCA and the rules and regulations, and keep up to date on all the stuff that pertains to you, like how you can use your clock, for example, exceptions and exemptions for when you can use your different tools in your clock to allow you to drive when you shouldn't normally be able to drive. Exemptions and exceptions. They vary and they change regularly.
Yeah.
You need to be aware of them, and you need to try to stay up to date on them, because your dispatcher, your safety department, and likely the police officer that's pulling you over aren't aware of the newest of those. And so you need to have those guys written down, have them memorized, so that you can bring them to the attention of the person who is questioning your right to do what you're doing. If you don't know your rights and you don't know how the procedures work and what things are available to you, no one's going to help you. They're going to ram it, you know, they're going to mess you up. So having all that information and learning as much as you can about your clock, you know, and how to function with that, how to function with different loads, because in different states have different weight regulations, different bridge laws, and you know, different axle lengths from the last part of your last truck axle to your first trailer axle. That distance, they refer to that as a bridge law. Down in Florida, you basically got to have your tandem slid all the way forward, and they don't care. You're allowed like 35,000 pounds. No, excuse me. It's like I think it's like 39,000 pounds or 40,000 pounds on your rear, on any axle or on any axle set. In those states that have that weird bridge law, because you basically, when you go into Florida, you got to stop immediately and pull those axles forward. I think it's like, don't quote me on this, I think it's like 42 or 43 feet, something like that. You basically got to move up to about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way up on your tandems to get it legal in Florida. There's a few states like that. Florida is one of the main ones because it's really close, and also they don't have the law allows you to have so much weight on a set of axles because of that bridge law. If you move them forward enough to comply with the bridge law, and your odds are that axles are going to be really, really heavy, because you're carrying a large portion of your load on those axles. I don't remember the numbers, but those two things work together. But you need to be aware of them. Especially if you're pulling a really heavy load going into a state that you don't normally drive into, you need to do a little research and find out, because you don't want to find out at the weigh station.
For sure. For sure. Now, we've covered a lot today, but there's one semi not trucking related thing that I'm really curious about. So in our discussions, it's come up that you're a car audio enthusiast, and I see some amps behind you there. Did you have a system in your truck? You got to know.
Yeah, I'll
love it. Oh man, look at that.
So this is my lithium battery, a big 10,000 watt amp, my old 20-something-year-old mids and highs amp. I'll take you for a little tour around the side here.
Let's do it.
I'm not sure how the lighting is going to be. It's probably going to go sideways, but
oh man, check that out. Wow.
So I know it's all messed up and the framing is all messed up, but that's my
All right.
wall, my sub wall back there.
That is
So
awesome.
412 wall. Yeah.
That is awesome.
There's more, but yeah, that's my hobby, and right now it's also my income. So I have a YouTube channel, Car Audio Enthusiasts, and look for the big green CAE, where we talk about all kinds of things in relation to car audio, car electronics, and anything car audio and car electronics related. Great community, and the channel's growing very fast.
Fantastic. That's awesome. We'll make sure to get that linked in the show notes as well for anyone that might want to check that out. Well, man, we have had an excellent conversation with you. We've learned a lot, been able to tap into that lived and learned knowledge that you've gained throughout the years in the industry. Anything that we've missed that you think new drivers coming in, some info they might need to know?
Yep, I got one.
Go for it.
You go driving a truck, there's no end game. There's no end game. This is like I said, it's like being a drug dealer or a prostitute. This is it. You're not going to be cool with doing anything else. This is going to be the rest of your life. If you stay with it for more than a year, you'll be doing this the day you die. Just the way it is. And you're not going to find anything else that's going to pay the bills as good as this does. Everything else is just going to break. This is your one. When you make this choice and you stick with it for a year or so, this is the path you're going to be on for the rest of your life. Just know that. However you want to plan for that, there's no retirement. There's no end game. It's just it. This is where you go. That's the best advice I can give anybody new.
Well, man, I want to thank you so much.
It's just what it is, man.
Yeah, no, I get it. I seriously want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule to hop on with us and let us pick your
no
brain
problem.
about your knowledge or your industry knowledge, I should say. And just really, really appreciative for letting us do that and for all that you've done for the industry. So thanks again so much for being here today. All right. Well, all of you watching, I appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe out there. Have a great day.